As many will know, school and work can be overbearing as all hell. Between studying, final projects, final papers, and finals themselves, I've barely had a moment's reprieve to catch my bearings. The go just keeps on going, and who knows how long until my brain's gonna crack. What I need in this moment is a real mind-freeing romp to roam about in. A piece of video gamic distraction that can soothe my soul, to say. Desperately. I desperately need that right now, let me tell you. In fact, if you took an x-ray of my soul, it'd probably be akin to that of Dorian fucking Gray's, just smeared with school smut and not moral depravity. So, needless to say, I am burnt, far beyond. In times of such dire burnage, what game did I choose to be my companion piece? The real heart starter to wipe away any degrading sewage from within my cold eyes, or at the very least block the view of it for a little while? Well, Dark Souls 1, of course, you dolt. Alright, 60 hours later, along with his several broken hearts, spirits, and dreams in the gutter, I have done it. I have become
The John Dark Souls Remastered for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and eventually the Nintendo Switch.
How does it feel? What a silly question. You think I can still feel after all this nerve strain? Okay, alright, let me be more clear. I need a peaceful, mind-free romp of a game to roam about in. Yeah, sure. I couldn't think throughout my entire 61-hour playtime of any of those Dark Souls, but constant,
fair and justified
pain isn't a thought. So, now that I can't feel and I can't think, what does that leave on the docket for distracting my mind away from the current woes of the world? You like Cowboy Bebop? You like PlayStation? You like little esoteric unknown janks? Well, have I got the item for you? You know it, you love it. That is, unless you want to be burned at the proverbial stake of Mephistopheles and co. It's 1A Cowboy Bebop. Need I even go into this one? More likely than not, you've heard some utterance of its name throughout the internet stratosphere. I mean, why else would you be watching a video that no doubt mentions the anime by name and its lesser known PSX game within its very own title? But in the off chance you somehow don't know, or you don't have that one friend who breaks into your room constantly to remind you to watch this masterclass of animation, here's the rundown, mate. Cowboy Bebop is a neo-noir existential space western, set within the dazed interstellar atolls of one existentially destroyed and scattered human populace. Within this confuddlement of interstellar humanity, we zone in on the ventures of 1A crewed aboard 1A titular Bebop. Jet Black, Spike Spiegel, Faye Valentine, Ed, and, of course, Best Boy Ein. Across 26 episodes, one movie, and many a catchy salutation, the show hooks its steel-hardened tendrils into your skull, inevitably causing you to become quite attached to this lovable cast of eccentricities, no matter whether you love anime, hate it, or are entirely indifferent to its existence. In short, it's a gateway to waking up at 3 AM on a Wednesday night underneath a blanket of spilled popcorn, a peaceful anime about a group of girls simply enjoying winter camping being the only piece to fill the silent void within your heart. That or weed, I guess. I love Cowboy Bebop, your grandpappy loves himself some Cowboy Bebop, and I know that you probably love yourself some Cowboy Bebop, even if you haven't seen it yet. It's just that type of media. There's a reason everyone sings its praises nonstop. Because it's just good. I mean, who'd have thought? Sometimes the collective cultural zeitgeist stance on an influential piece of media is actually correct. Shocker. Great. Now that we've cleared out any and all potential confusion for any and all uninformed parties, let's move on to the juice of this video and see what the Japan-only PSX anime game tie-in be all about. So, what's this game's deal? Well, as stated, it's a tie-in game released somehow only a month into the anime's initial run. How that's possible, I couldn't tell you, but it's the case. Cowboy Bebop, not to be confused with Cowboy Bebop, is a PlayStation 1 game released for, well, the PlayStation 1. To avoid any naming confusion, however, I'm gonna refer to it as Cowboy Bebop PSX, or simply CBB PSX, because otherwise I'd have an aneurysm reading the script aloud. Within CBB PSX, you play as Spike, or more accurately as his red fiend of a spaceship, the Swordfish 2, in an adventure of railroad-esque heights. By that, I mean that the game is a rail shooter through and through, wherein you have very little control over anything except firing at the enemies within your narrow view, or smashing full throttle into the ever-shifting ground. As this Swordfish, you will make your way across a wide breadth of 6 stages, or scenes as the game refers to them, wherein you blast enemies, dodge spiky geometry, and constantly getting berated by your crew members for lasering their stellarides instead of the enemies. Unfortunately, as this is a rail shooter, you are given a pitiful level of freedom for movement and maneuverability. You can go left, right, down, up, you know, the 4 axes, and that's all. No speed control, no nuanced flight systems, no rad flight moves, nothing really to rock your socks off in terms of high-octane space action. Well, nothing except the obligatory included means to do a barrel roll, of course. I said, you can do a barrel roll! In a couple scant moments, the game does open up to a mini free-flying arena to spread your wings about in, but none of the movement mechanics are changed from the heavily railed sections. The only difference being the rails walls forcing left or right movement have been temporarily torn down. But the track itself is still intact. It's just a square instead of a straight line now. I think also a couple of times mid-track, the rails walls are again stripped down to give a option between a left or a right path. However, the difference in environment and enemy blasting was so minuscule that I never really regarded the different paths even being an element, let alone that it could be referred to as a feature. They each lead you back to the same ending point no matter what, after all. Now, that's all well and good, but that's just the description of any lackluster rail shooter. What be the mechanics that make Cowboy Bebop PSX different? What be the reason to even play it in the first place? Well, in just about every manner as those notable and highly regarded rail shooters have a plethora of fun and diverse gimmicks that distinguish them from the others, your Panzer Dragoons, Sin and Punishment, Time Crisis, etc. CBPSX, doesn't have a single thing. The game itself is completely derivative in nature, with no distinguishing factors to differentiate it from the crowd. Or, well, I guess crowd isn't probably the best term. It would probably be more apt to call it Fox. Yeah, let's cut all pretense. If you've been watching any of the recorded footy playing as B-roll in the background, you've undoubtedly noticed this game has a few flaws, we'll say, in that it also happens to share a couple striking similarities to that of Star Fox. Similarities in this case, of course, meaning completely fucking ripping off every single element. Naturally. Yep, despite my love for Cowboy Bebop, I cannot deny the obvious. This anime's tie-in romp is nothing more than an utter rubbish Star Fox clone. Not even a good Star Fox clone. Rubbish. Now look, I'm not the biggest Star Fox truther to begin with, having only beaten the 3DS remake, so take any and all the critiques regarding the game's Star Fox-isms with a grain of salt. However, from what I've played of those games, I've somewhat gleaned what it's like to engage with a quality interstellar set rail shooter featuring the non-stop badgering barrage from a cast of endearing yet vexatious teammates. I've gotten a taste of the good funk, so to say. All this ramble is to say I feel rather confident in claiming that CBB PSX is, in one word, horrid, in two, fucking horrid. As alluded to prior, no branching paths that lead to differing stages, bland, uninspired level design featuring even more uninspired titles, and by God, the worst camera I think I've ever experienced in a video game. I promise, this is not hyperbole. It is genuinely atrocious. Like, you ever play Metal Gear Solid 5 or Death Stranding and get just a little scattered by the shaky cam Kojima loves to implement for his heart-pounding grounded realism? Imagine if you took the mate behind that fictional shaky Metal Gear Solid camera and injected a mixture of vodka and datura straight into their veins with an IV drip steadily over the course of 3 hours, before giving them that camera back and telling them to run wild. That doesn't even relay half of what the camera for Cowboy Bebop PSX nauseatingly provides. In one moment, it'll be fine and dandy, clearly displaying your ship. In the next, it will get caught on a snippet of prickly geometry and fling the view off into the oblivion, causing a rather quick explosion and sending you back to the beginning of the stage. Funny thing about this is that this isn't something you find out after you've sunk a considerable amount of time into the game. It reaches peak atrociousness by the fucking second level. Desert City. Told you they were inspired names. This is because the level was designed to be a cool action set piece, weaving your way in and out about the various buildings of the district in the distinct city. I'm sure you needn't need me to spell out the issues that arise from this hell of an implementation. Then, as if to spit in your face and stub your toe further, the stage goes on to conclude within an open, sandy clearing, building weaving unrequired. Hallelujah! However, the final boss is a grand old giant robotic worm, which the game throws right at your face to fight. This worm covers up the entire screen when it first enters, so although building weaving isn't needed, you're gonna crash into the butt ass of this giant worm. The game makes it quite clear, open area or building abundant, it's always gonna find a means of throwing prickly geometry into that poor camera sap's melted mind matter. I should have laid off on the vodka a little bit. While there are only a grand total of 6 stages, that somehow doesn't restrict the examples that are given by this god-awful camera throughout my entire playthrough. However, allow me to do us all a favor here and stop. This is definitely more of a favor for future me, as I'm sure that me editing this right now is currently having a wholly lovely time experiencing whiplash and nausea that would sicken a fighter pilot. In regards to the narrative and any intrigue that could derive from it, it comes as no surprise that I barely paid attention to any of this game's contents. Part of this has to do with the fact that, outside scant few lines and learned grammar, I don't speak the source language fluently, but the other large part has to do with the fact that it doesn't need to provide a narrative hook, so it doesn't. It knows it's fucking Cowboy Bebop, 1 month into the anime's run or not, and it knows you could slap that name on a can of melted down Funko Fuck Funk and I'd still drink it up. I think that goes with most people who engaged with this, honestly. They were engaging for more in-depth Cowboy Bebop lore. They are engaging because the characters are an utter joy to be around. And it's fun to get shouted at by Jet for blasting his ass non-stop throughout the course of one a cameraman's crude hangover session. Narrative hook unrequired? Hell, quality game unrequired when you have such a firm foundation to stand upon. So, concluding thoughts? I'll face it, the hunk of junk is rubbish, no matter which way it's bagged and tagged. The shit shows through the slathered makeup. But that's alright. This title was forgotten, as is deserved. However, if you're looking for just a short little fun Cowboy Bebop themed venture, I'd say give it a go. Just remember to take some cyclazine before engaging with it, as it is one hell of a bumpy ride. I won't lie though, this game has made me aware to the fact that perhaps my set-in-stone opinions should be examined occasionally, because, well, they could be, wrong. Maybe my constant staring at the sun, that be the collective internet's thoughts on Cowboy Bebop, has burned my retinas and shrouded me within a mist of fine nostalgia. This game and its utter fucking travesty of a quality control check have cast a light within that mist. A light that is telling me maybe Cowboy Bebop isn't as good as I remember. Perhaps Cowboy Bebop deserves a rewatch, as it could just be nothing more than an overhyped sloppy prick given too much time to bake underneath the heat lamp of a fast food joint. Yeah, maybe I'll go give it a little rewatch. Seen it a couple times. But, it doesn't hurt to double check and just reconfirm. Nope! Fuck you haters, fuck you CBB PSX, this show is amazing!